What's up, me hound Dave? Welcome back. Corked Stats, fastest freaking show in NFL. Absolutely anywhere. Which is cool. Big Johnny Stud coming to you worldwide. Brooklyn, New York, as always. Coming out that damn chair, as always. The poet that didn't know it, follow me up on Twitter at John Lagaza Flow, sharper than a damn razor. Same handle over on Substack. $2 a week. Get your 5 pounds of shit in a 2-pound box. Find out what all the hubbub's about, yo. Free samples, all that stuff. Whatever, man. Baseball stuff, rock and rolling. If you're into that, you get it all for the same price with the foosball. Best ball ranks are up. They're color coded. They're uploadable, and they are fucking glorious, right? Let's go. Come on, let's show them off while we're here. That's the team stats that you get. Also, when you sign up, we've got a really great data set, both team level, player stuff. We're going to go through all that today as we cover the second round ADP loosely. Feeling good to be in the saddle so early. I waited a little bit too long last year. I had a decent season, but I felt behind the entire time. Middle of May, you already want to have a really good handle on all the player moves, starting to look at the board. As best ball season is kicking into full swing, we really want to be on top of it. Again, the player ranks are upgraded from last year, right? Site ADP, site projections, fancy little color-coded hoo-has or whatever. But then some pertinent stats also. You know, when you're under the gun in these drafts, the clock moves so damn fast that you want to make sure you're on top of it. You can't be doing deep dives. We want to be doing that stuff away from the draft room like we're going to do today. So that's just a little bit of what you get. You can see I could flip around a little bit when you sign up. I was mentioning the team level stuff. There's offense. We've also, it's split, time split, last 6, last 4. Same for defense. Maybe I should have taken a little bit more time back to the offense. If you're familiar with the baseball stuff, you know what to expect. Everything, right? All the things that matter, formatted, clean, perfectly neat, and easy to understand. Offensive rate stats. I like to use average clock at the time of snap. Again, yards per play, yards per game, all that stuff, of course. Net yard differential, success rate, EPA, first down per drive, points per drive, drive scoring success. You really want to have your, thumb in the pulse of the macros, trying to form your opinions. Football is highly variant and a lot of moving pieces. Rushing stuff, before, after contact, success, explosive rushes, passing. You got to have all the detailed stuff, explosive rate, verse man, verse zone, plus all the pressure stuff and the defensive stuff where I think we really kind of stand out because I think that's where the schematics make a little bit more of a difference. Again, all the efficiency stuff, success and EPA, you want to have a good handle on that. Rushing, kind of the same as offense. I think where the defensive stuff sticks out, number one, all the pressure stuff, your splash plays, tackle success rate. I find tackle success rate is hugely impactful. Splash plays, blitz, pressure, converted, sack to pressure rate, everything versus the slot, what you allow, man zone or too high. How many DBs? 3? Do you play 3-4? Are you going nickel? Are you going dime? Then EPA in all of those. How are you aligning your DBs also? Cover 1, cover 2. I also have the kind of fantasy points allowed per position, but then also the niche stuff. I didn't really know what to name this. And it's really helpful for either streaming in fantasy or betting props, right? There's a big time overlap here. QB rush yards per game, running back receptions per game, wide receiver receptions and tight end receptions. I'm a reception ladder player. Though every year these are getting a little bit better. This is not set in stone. If you're signed up and you've got ideas of stuff to add, I'll be glad to add it. A lot of times it takes me a little bit of work just to set the formula, get it going, format it. But then once we're off to the races. So, I am here for you, and the door swings both ways. I really think having a leg up on these stats, is a fast track in the information war. I update everything day after games, and you get optimals plus player projections, and then we're going to do bets and ladders and stuff, fantasy waivers or whatever. So we're dealing with a pretty robust data set. Oh, I almost forgot the piece de resistance is differentials. I mean, if you're into betting at all, these are worth the cost of admission on their own. No one really doing this. And for you to calculate it, format it, and set it, it's not worth the $2 a week at all. It's not worth your time. EPA per play differential, EPA per dropback differential, YPA differential, points per drive diff, play per game, yards per play, explosive play, average third down difference, average field position, things that really kind of add that last layer of nuance when you're trying to understand, exactly what's going on and why. So just a little bit of nuance and context pouring at your nose when you roll with us. Let's pop on over to the fantasy board. I just screwed something up. Lovely. Give me give me 1 second. All right, there she blows. Live TV, man, it happens. Oh. So I've got up, this is NFBC, or the B's for baseball, NFFC. They do great work. It's the home for all your high stakes stuff. This particular feature is the shit. It's the only place I know that does this, where this is ADP, right? This is not a drafted board. This is ADP viewed as a draft board. Hit up, what's his name? Greg. Tell him I said hey. We went through the first round already. I'm just getting used to this YouTube thing and how to coordinate with the podcast between live streams and stuff. Showing my old a little bit. I do think the first round is also a video. There's a couple of draft streams also. Then there's a couple of podcasts that were not streamed. I didn't feel like setting up the studio. Also, when I want to shop the tools, I mean, obviously I'm a shill for myself, but I think you got to see this stuff so you know how useful it is. Can't believe how many people I know have given me exactly that feedback with baseball. Yeah, you're like, I don't really want to spend money on this shit. Trust me, I get it. I built this stuff for myself and then realized it was good enough, to export. Because again, it really is all about saving time, regardless of what you think of me. So let's get into the second round. And again, we'll show off some of the data and the stats. The first name up there I see is Justin Jefferson. So I have all the pass catchers set up in order of fantasy points scored and then team. Now, you can use the filter and the search function. However, you also see I have ADP, and that's going to update as I re-rack the underdog stuff. Whenever I re-rack the underdog best ball, that will reflect here. So let's hop down to the Vikings. Obviously, Jefferson, kind of a superstar, all-world talent, right? No breaking news there. But it was a little bit of a rough go. Let's take a looky-loo under the hood. Just 200 points, shade under 11 fantasy points per game. Vikings probably learned the lesson that quarterback play is important. Maybe Sam Darnold is good, and not everybody just fits into the KOC system. Now, you did get, 550 routes, 96% route participation from Jefferson, which is excellent. Over 32 routes per game, which is good. 140 targets, you love that. He did get over 1,000 yards, but he only scored 2 touchdowns. That's a major issue. Just over 8 targets a game for just over 61 yards, but maybe more impressive would be the 25.5% target per route, 1.9 yards per route, 85 air yards per game, and the big-time target and air yard shares. Right, mostly out wide, we know that. 24 deep targets, we love that. 16 end zone targets, we love that. You don't really get a lot of love out of the slot, though when he's in the slot, Jefferson does get targeted there. So this is still a player we should very much be into. The only hang-up or hiccup, I think outside the quarterback play, because I think he just showed you what he could do with quarterback play, something I always talk about with the baseball stuff is what I love so much about the sheets, right? That they're so neat and everything is set the same way. They kind of allow you maintain the stream of consciousness, keep your thought process going, and fill in all the gaps without having, again, to go open a million tabs and go fucking scrape stuff. Everybody knows how much of a pain in the ass football data is because people use different abbreviations for the team names. It's a total pain in the cock. Trust me, I know. I know. So let's get over to Minnesota. Just how bad was the QB play? Oh my gosh, the macros are just terrible. Minnesota ran just over 56 yards a play. Let me blow this up one more time for you. Just 275 yards a game. That's total. 30 turnovers. Oh my God, 44% success rate. This is the worst thing ever. Just the worst thing ever. Over to the passing stuff. Good pass rate, but the completion rate was shit. EPA per attempt near the bottom. I mean, everything was near the bottom. 17 and a half completions a game for $189 through the air. Just 39 20-yard completions, 18 touchdowns to 21 total picks. Really horrendous, right? Entirely too many sacks. 48 sacks allowed, 11%. Sack rate, those are partly on the QB. However, I guess it is all on the QB. I was going to say you can oftentimes back up offensive production with yards before contact per rush. No, it's oversimplifying things. But it is a really good sign of a quality line. Like I have just found that stat correlates to good O-lines. This year I'm hoping to add a little bit more. I just want to make sure I have everything correct and my ducks in a row. If you have any ideas, hit me up. I'm all about it. Vikings very good at yards before contact per rush. That also didn't really show in the rush a little bit, but it would have been better, I think, if they had better runners and more of a threat. What do you think about the Minnesota pass game, for 2026? Shit, man, I don't know. McCarthy was terrible. So was Murray. Let's pop over to the QB page and do the same thing. I already moved everybody over, so the stats are last year's, but the player and the team reflect next year. I don't know if there's a perfect way to handle that. But I wanted to have Kyler Murray on Minnesota when I'm looking up Minnesota. Neither one of these guys was any good. I mean, for real. Murray, I guess, better than McCarthy, which doesn't say a lot. Better in EPA, way better completion rate, better passer rating. All these numbers are better. Remember, better is a relative term, but not great. Though Murray with the air yards per attempt below 6, going to make you wish for McCarthy up near 9. 35% to the sticks for Murray, nearly 50 for McCarthy. So McCarthy gets you the depth that you're not going to get from Murray, which I don't want to say is going to hurt Jeff, but I think we might want, I don't know, it's hard to want McCarthy with anybody, but I think the McCarthy archetype fits better with Jeff. Plus, the way McCarthy turns the ball over, you're always going to be in negative game scripts. Again, good for Jefferson. So it's hard for me to get myself to the point where I'm saying, Jeff smash pick 100% rostership. I'm not there. No, I'm not. Right, but that big ass. The big shaking butt. He's still the same talent that he was before, and I get he doesn't have the quarterback play of the other first round wideouts, but he's not going ahead of them. So Jefferson is an awesome pick, and I think if you come down with him anywhere in the front end of the second, you're a winner. I'm down for the crown with that. I've liked the second round backs, so I've been trying to get a first round wideout where I can. There's only 5 of them. Depends where you're getting them. I could see putting Jefferson up into the turn and pairing Jefferson with one of the other players we're going to talk about today. Last episode, I couldn't help but obsess over Ken Walker. There's going to be a lot of that going on. So if you went Jefferson, Walker, I think you're a winner. Even with ADP, if you're going Genty and Jefferson, I think you're a winner. Though there's been a lot of talk about how downright depressing the first round runners are this year. I'm sorry, the drafted the first round rookies is what I mean to say, and just rookie class in general. Right? Was there one rookie running back? No, I think Price went the last pick, right, to Seattle, whatever. Point is, there's not a lot of threats out there. We've seen moves toward, the more running back, heavy meta. Let's zoom on it for this one. Around here, we respect our elders in Tech Mobile. With the inception of the too high shell and a lot of these more preventative styles of defense, it's very good at the thing it does, which is prevent someone going over the top. It's not good at the thing it's not supposed to be doing, which is stopping the underneath stuff. The thing is, you can succeed as an NFL offense without the deep stuff, being efficient and kind of matriculating down the field or whatever. So we're getting this push and pull of, defenses kind of, like allowing a sort of production, and offenses being willing to, take that production. If you're posting two guys really deep, you're probably less likely to fill a box with 8 or 9 guys, in which case you're going to invite some running. We've also had the inception of a newer style of tight end, can play on the line, get physical, and block, at least somewhat. Right? These are not great blockers, but block enough. But the real threat is the catch and release. And now that also plays into, right, the underneath game, trying to work under the zones. So that's, long story, somewhat long, part of why we've seen the drive back to running backs. The explosive plays are going to be down, but the drive rates are going to be up. Run volume is going to be up, but then play volume is going to be down. Generally, scoring volume is going to be down, right? So always the push and pull of the clock ticking, which is funny. I wonder if this is a good idea or a bad idea. But I think the answer, someone's going to hate this. I think the answer to introduce more scoring into NFL without going crazy would be the college rule of stopping the clock on the first down, or maybe even just stopping it for chain movement. And I think if we just added a handful more plays into the game, more yards, more points, more loving. So running backs are going to be getting prioritized, which they should. However, just because they've stayed healthy, there is no world, right, where more running back touches equals less risk of health. That's not a thing, not on this plane of reality, at least. So then you have to settle it for yourself. Are you going to take one and try and mitigate some risk? Are you going to take none because it's too risky? Or are you going to take 2 and hope you don't have one of the guys that goes down? Speaking for myself, I like to build from a balanced perspective. Though this year, and this is something I was talking about on the streams, the draft streams, the balance for me is more just running back and wide receiver balance. I've been finding, though there are A1 players at the onesies, QB, tight end, the separation from the field plus the opportunity cost has not made the calculation worth it for me. When I've drafted Josh Allen, where, he's going, you could see, one thing about this board, it's 3rd round reversal. So this board is 1, 2, back to 3 for the first round pick. So that's why you see Josh Allen on the right end of the board with a 25 on his name, opposed to a 37. Okay. So if you were to take Allen early 3, and I have before, because I'm not crazy about some of the other guys going there. We'll get there in the third round episode if I ever get to the players in the second round today. But a lot of the conversation for me about the early rounds is not necessarily the players themselves. Now, I have to be careful because I've also looked past elite players in the past. Oh, whatever, they're all great. And that's not the case. They're not all created equal. But I think you need a positional understanding up top because it helps to shape the decisions later on. And I have found that when I take Bowers 2 and or Allen 3, I don't love the skill position guys. And at one point in the draft, later in those same drafts, I'm saying, oh man, I could have gotten, Harold Fannin at pick 90 or whatever, where I would much rather have him at 90 with the wide receiver I could have gotten at 25 or whatever, opposed to the flip side of that. Same with Josh Allen, where, especially in 1 QB leagues, there's so many viable quarterbacks. Listen, Josh Allen's fucking awesome. But look where Drake May's going. Drake May's going late as shit, man. May pick 50. I've gotten him later than that. Underdog. The quarterbacks are in like the 70s. I think in these boomer leagues, they may score more. They may have either 5-point touchdowns or 6-point touchdowns or some shit. But regardless, it's May much later on, and you can even push even further. Where Lawrence 2 rounds after that, Herbert and Dart 2 rounds after that. In a 1 QB league, you start with Jackson Dart, you're fine. Something goes wrong, you replace him. But I don't want to say late in May. I'm already kind of planting my flag into this shit. But I am feeling pretty strongly about it. So let's jump into the next player is Amari and Hampton. My gut reaction right here is this is an overpay. So let's jump into the wide receiver stuff. I had it set to the Chargers already. I like to use PFF's weekly scoring board. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good perspective. It's a weekly finish board is what I mean. Hold on, let me get over to running backs. I was just looking at this, and it's not great. Hampton missed, 8 weeks with an ankle. Not that I think that repeats. I think that's one of the ones that you can heal and get back to 100% on. He was really good week 3 and 4, but the first 2 weeks, running back 33 and 52. Then he had 2 top 7 weeks. Running back 22, misses 2 months. Then goes 17, 38, 17, and 10. And the glory just wasn't there. He did not go over 16. Oh, I'm sorry. There was a 19 carries just once. He had 25 touches that game. That's the one we wanted, right? That was the one that had everybody going. The week 3 that I just mentioned. 1970 and 1. He goes 659 and 0 versus Denver. And it was like, oh, this is the guy we're looking for. After that, you really didn't get it again. You really didn't get it again. You got little bits. Let's get into the underpinning stuff. 15 fantasy points a game we like. My counter to that, he's a fucking early second round pick. You better get that shit. You know what I'm saying? 4.4 YPA. Now, hard to talk about the Chargers, that offense, and the run game in particular without, they lost Joe Alton, you lose Slater, right? Those guys are supposed to be back. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm not the biggest draft guy. I don't pretend to be. I have found for fantasy, I think not knowing a lot about the draft actually serves to help me understanding more of archetypes in the team and how they fit. Keeps me from overpaying because I don't know enough about the guys to overpay. And I think overpaying is where you get yourself in trouble. Though I do have the weekly show, I pay attention, but I just like to make sure I'm pumping the brakes. So they drafted a center, Jake Slaughter, out of Florida in the second round, number 63 overall. So Chargers have pretty big plans. This could go from the worst O-line to the best O-line. And if that's part of the calculus, and you're saying, well, there were flashes of the big touches, then, that is the strong bull case. Because again, good YPA and good yards after contact per attempt over 3 and a third. The yards before contact per rush, that stat I mentioned as an O-line stat, is down at 1, was trash. EBA per rush, the rushing success, kind of meh. Explosive rush rate was Here's the one pushback that I would say. Because the Chargers were so banged up, they faced far fewer stacked boxes. I have that also. So Hampton faced one of the lowest 8-man box rates at his workload. So it's possible that the efficiency all steps back also. Just saying. The target stuff was actually way better than I thought. I think that was the first thing to jump off the page for me. As a rookie back, with competition, mind you. Right? Oh, Harris had the eyeball thing. So there was comp, but not really. Week 1 especially. Because then they kind of really did split week 2. Hampton managed to go out and rack up at least 5 catches out of the backfield. Week 3, 4, and 5. He went 6, 5, 6. And me as a ladder better, fucking love that. And if you're a PPR player, you freaking love that. Worth a little bit less than underdog. I understand the bull case. For me, where he's going, it's a little rich because I think he's jumping guys that maybe don't have the same kind of question marks. I also might see this O-line come back full strength after one quarter and be like, what the hell was I thinking? So I get it. I do get it. They brought in Keaton Mitchell. I have that name here. I don't know if he's going to be much of a threat. I mean, Vidal was really the player who impressed. And he had some major touch load games, and I wonder if, that's part of the counter also. If Hampton just gets the Vidal workload, he had 23 carries, 117-1 versus Minnesota. He went 25, 95-1 versus Pittsburgh. Both of those games, he had 1 catch. This is Vidal. Another 25 carries versus Vegas, 25-1, 26-1. I mean, there's a monster kind of workload. But when they had the option, they decided to split. Right? Hampton returned right after Vidal had gone ham bone. And though Hampton got the majority, it wasn't everything, right? And I know very rarely do people get everything. But I do think it's worth mentioning. And I think it's part of my argument against Hampton over, like, again, you're talking about Chase Brown, healthy Burrow, really great offense. Now, if you're talking to me about Jeremiah Love, you're missing me with that pick at 19. To me, that's a bogus, busted pick. All right, let's try and put some context on this stuff. Plus, you see Trey McBride. The McBride stuff is very easy to break down. He's awesome, like legit freaking awesome. The problem is the quarterback play. We saw him elevated by Brissett, so he seems proof to it. Though, Richie Rebar was the guy who really did the comprehensive work on this. How garbage time just isn't sticky, it doesn't last. And a lot of times when you sun run, it just means the backswing is going to be even worse. And I think Arizona experienced some of that. No, I have to actually look at the game log to see. Didn't really affect McBride. He looked human versus Atlanta, going 4 for 27. Everyone was like, oh no. But then he closed out strong, 10-76-1, 765. So I'm not trying to say you should be worried about McBride. I am kind of sticking to my point of I'm not sure the separation is there. I think I'd rather the 1v1 of, elite running back. And like I said, somebody later could be I like Likely much later on. I told you I like Fannin. You could churn and burn if you have to. I like Tucker Kraft. Packers moving away from Romeo Doubs. There could be some redundancy there. Just moving somebody out of the way, I think Kraft is the best underneath option they have. So he's coming off the injury too. And that's going to be a defining characteristic to approach for everyone this year. All right, let's go to Chase Brown. Chase Brown feels like if you hung in, you got paid off, right? And if not, it was like the worst thing ever. Let me just see if I could put some actual context to this. So yeah, Chase Brown, it wasn't until week 7 that he even got to the top 20 running backs. Top 20. And it was number 19. And then the sun run began. 5, 6, 12, 14, 11, 6, 13, 1, 3, 7. I mean, from week 8 on, Brown was like absurd. And when Joe Burrow is gonna, do that. I mean, Flacco was actually really the key to the initial bump. So just quarterback play is the big help. Brown has a massive receiving ceiling. There aren't a lot of guys that can have he got 3 games in the regular season last year of 7 catches or more, plus a 6. There's big time upside there. I think with a healthy Burrow, it's, wheels up on one of the best offenses in the league. Quick flip over to Cincy. So the overall stuff is okay. Maybe Cincy is a good candidate for last 6 I mentioned. So I actually have last 6 up, and you can see that everything just spikes. Just awesome. However, rush efficiency was not good. And I think we could probably extend that to Brown himself. Where it really wasn't like a, efficiency thing. Again, just 4.4 yards per attempt. The yards before contact was okay, just under 1.5. Yards after contact right around 3 is kind of meh. But negative EPA per rush, the rushing success rate at 47, 8% explosive rush, which again, those are not great for such a low 8-man. The receiving stuff is, the reason for the season. And I do think he's the man there. Samaj P. Ryan is back. Taj Brooks, guys that I think just are not explosive. So I get the Brown price. I think I'd rather have Hampton, but I think I'd also rather have Walker. Then for me, it's Barkley. Then I'm off Henry. You could have Henry. I get it, the age thing. How many times we're going to do this? Eventually, it's going to go south. He's just a 0 in the pass catching game. So I can't have a second round back that can get scripted out of half the games. Yes, I think Baltimore's defense is going to be good. I'm not into that. So Chase Brown, I think he checks a lot of boxes. I'd like a little bit more of a runner, like a runner's runner, which I think you get from Walker and Hampton. Certainly from Genty, Cook, and A-Chain, the guys before them. So immediately, the second round, things get hairy. That's how fantasy football is nowadays. I think you need to know, positional stuff. Then you kind of grab your balls and go for it. The Love thing, I'm out. You are totally missing me with that. Tyler Algier is a legit good running back. Tyler Algier managed to steal goal line carries from Bijan Robinson and managed to steal ice out carries from Bijan Robinson, who's objectively, quantifiably, one of the best players on the planet. Tyler Algier is a good player. And this isn't to knock Love. I just think this was the stupidest luxury pick of all time for a team that just was not in need of a premier back after having just signed a legitimate player. So for me, no thank you. No thank you. Now, the pitch I've heard is Arizona's going to stink so bad that they'll be permanently in negative game scripts and Love is going to dominate all the pass game work. I would imagine he is the pass game option. That said, is he the goal line back? How many touchdowns are they going to score? And I don't know. I don't like the competition. I mentioned not knowing a ton about rookies and how it's benefited me. And one of the ways it's benefited me is almost always saying, I'll take the experience of the veteran knowing where to stand. That sounds crazy, but like knowing where to line up and when really freaking matters. It really matters. Love could be great. I think you're 1000% paying for a ceiling outcome, and you need something to happen to Algier already. To me, there just is not a world where this is not a split right off the bat. And I don't know why you would take a running back in the mid second over guys that are the clear, right, unequivocal 1As on their own team. So Love could be a great player. I could get smushed on this one. I think if I do, it's got to be, again, through like garbage time dump offs. Plus, he's awesome. But some of this kind of smells like Trevion last year. Oh, you don't understand the talent. You don't understand the talent. Mondre's dusty. It just, yeah, again, same idea. Isn't Algier a better runner than Mondre? I think so. So even if Love is a better prospect, I'm like, I'm not interested. Whatever. Who's next? All right, next up is Barkley. I have found myself not drafting Saquon at all. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm making the right decision. I tend to try and prove myself wrong or try and figure out why. We had a step back season, and I think that's understandable. I kind of worry about the guys with so many miles on the damn tires. Let's bring up the Barkley stuff from last year. Again, you flip right over to the page, everything is right there, and boom. All the volume you could ask for, but the efficiency not great. I've been using fantasy points per snap and points per touch, and those for Barkley were extremely disappointing. Extremely disappointing. Now, over 17 carries a game, went for over 1,100 yards on the ground, so that'll work. But the yards after contact was really, really poor. So the things that I'm seeing, also look at the spiked negative attempt rate. Those a lot of times are the things that point to individual skill and effort. And those things used to be better, and they're not. Barkley's fantastic in the pass game. It's only 50 targets. So it's like a little bit muted, but it's his. It's his role. We're talking 20 touches a game. He had over 1,400 scrimmage yards. He's not a bum, and he's not dust. But I'd be lying if I said that I wasn't worried a little bit. Philadelphia offense really slowed things down. I mentioned clock at snap, right? The average play clock time at snap. Eagles were like a bottom three, second to lowest, right behind the Dolphins. I use conditional formatting by percentile, 10th to 90th, so you don't really care about third worst or fifth worst. That lacks some context. All you need to know, Eagles were really, really slow and had just 59 plays a game. So with the low success rate, we're asking for a bit of a bounce back here. The line play has been strong. Lane Johnson said he's coming back, though, he's not getting any younger. I'm starting to go not cold on the Eagles, but like cold on them as, maybe just offensively. They've got the issues with A.J. Brown, and we don't know where the hell he's going to wind up. And I know they brought in Lemon, but do they have a real replacement for Brown? Can you really replace Brown? And if the vertical game gets stunted, could that not mean, more pressure up front on the run game? So I think there's a more clear floor for Barkley than in years past. Also, I should just double check that he's still there. But man, Tank Bigsby looked awesome in the small set. And now he's jumping Barkley in training camp. But we've seen this happen time and time again. If you're getting outplayed, you start to lose a little bit. Then you start to lose a little bit more. I'd rather have any of the young guys over Barkley. Maybe I'm moving Barkley behind the next guy I want to talk about, which is Drake London. Now, the hardest thing to solve for in football is always the injury stuff. Right? Didn't London miss a little bit? Okay, London missed a lot of it. London missed a lot of it. He missed week 8, came back for 3 games, missed 4 more than had 3 more on the ledger. And it was like A1 going into that bye, through the bye, misses that one game, comes back and goes ballistic in those 3 games. He was probably like the wide receiver 1 overall. Right, 9, 118, and 3 at New England, 6, 104, and 1 at Indy, then 7, 119, and over as Carolina. He went nuts. That was pretty much it, though. That was the end of the road. Oh, we've come to the end of the road. I thought, shit. I was on Spot Track on a player page, and I thought there was an injury tab. And now I'm not seeing it. I feel like a damn fool. Shite. I forget what the injury was. I'm going to have to take the risk of looking like a total schtenod right here and ask freaking AI, which is like chronically wrong all the time. PCL sprain. Okay, right. PCL sprain. He made it back. Again, he wasn't great, but he did finish the games. He did finish out. I think trying to predict injuries is the fastest way to get yourself into trouble. And I think if you're looking for a wideout in the second round that could finish at the top, it's got to be London. Really skilled, can do a lot of different things, and they're versatile with the usage. I wrote about this a year or two ago, and it's not like 8D chess. But getting your wide receiver 1 in and out of the slot for a couple of layup targets and easy catches is that pathway to that overall wide receiver 1. Not just WR1, but like the wide receiver 1. Falcons, I mean, behind in the pass catchers, they brought in Jahan Dotson, and then, Zacchaeus, and then like, Zachariah Branch, Casey Washington. I mean, London should be like the guy. I also have to push up. I'm going to do this in. I got to make sure I push up Zacchaeus. He's got to get some love at this point. The quarterback situation is a little muddy, but I think it's an okay muddy for the pass catchers. We have a lot of places where there's barely one good quarterback. Here, at least, we have 2 okay quarterbacks. I think Penix is going to be fine. And I think Tua is one of the best backups in the league. You could get me to nod my head if you're going to be bashing Tua as a starter, no doubt. But as far as a backup, come on, that's a great backup. So I think London is safe no matter what. We've seen Tua can get it out quick, and we've seen him carry wide receiver 1s in the past. So let me click on over to the London thing. I've got him highlighted. Almost 17 fantasy points a game, more than half a fantasy point per route. That's elite. It's good stuff. 112 targets, went for 919 and 7. I think all these could regress upwards, but 29% target per route, over 2 1/3 yards per route run, over 100 air yards per game. I mean, this is it, baby. You're getting deep targets, you're getting slot routes, plus you're getting slot yards and slot receptions. London scored 7 times from the slot. See what I mean? Moving the big guy in, creating the mismatch, getting the high probability look, and then boom, guys dancing. So yeah, definitely a wheels up situation for London. I'm going to move him up. Maybe I still have him behind Brown. I'm taking him over McBride, but it's a positional thing. I'm taking him over all the guys we mentioned. I am. I'm taking him over. I'm taking him over Hampton too. It depends. Depends on that first round. The first round is so split. Right now, I want 1 and 1. So right now, you could chalk me up for my best available player round 1, and then my best available skill position complement in round 2. Give me all the Drake London. All right, next is Malik Neighbors. I'm out. He's dropping down draft boards. The knee stuff is more complicated than they let on. I'm out. We had another surgery. I'm out. Too expensive. He's got to get at least to the 3rd. I don't think he'll ever make it to the back end of the 3rd. I'm out. Thanks, but no thanks. He could be the number 1 overall player. I understand that you're going to have that. I don't want to be chasing lower body injuries, especially ones with setbacks. I'm not trying to do that. Now, maybe Right? If we see one of the few times I might talk about weighing exhibition stuff, if he's out there and horsing MFers, all right, maybe I'll get back on. I just don't think it's going to be the case. I can't imagine. I'm seeing him right away. I'm actually expecting like a fucking pup tag or something. So Nevers at 23 to me is patently insane. He's got to drop at least a full round. And then you could talk to me again. He's going to be dominant when he plays, when he's healthy, but it's that last part that I'm struggling to, wrap my mind around. Then it's my guy, Ken Walker. I feel like I talk about him every time you stick a microphone in front of my face. Kansas City has been dying for a real back forever. They've made chicken salad out of chicken shit for years. Ken Walker is a damn fucking stud. And he showed us he could succeed in the pass game. We've seen how valuable the RB1 role in an Andy Reid offense is. Like, it just goes, for me, the bull points go on and on and on and on. Whatever. I could take this fucking guy at the turn if I had to. I'm in. I'm all in. He's gonna be my guy this year. I love Ken Walker. I liked him last year. They went and drafted Emmett Johnson. That's fine. You get him late enough to pair. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. And even Amari DeMarcado, maybe you get a spike week out of him in basketball too. No doubt. I think we're back in the saddle to wanting Kansas City running backs. I think they finally, got beat over the head with the lack of talent and said, okay, enough is enough. All we could stand and we can't stand no more. Check out just how bad the Kansas City run game was last year. I mean, of course, the macros are going to be strong with fucking Patrick Mahomes out there. You know what I'm saying? Look at the run stuff. Horrendous. The rush rate was too low for just 160 run yards per game total. Just terrible. Just over 4 yards per attempt. Terrible. The 2.5 yards after contact per rush were second only behind the Broncos. The 5.3 explosive rush rate was dead last in the league. I mean, this is fucked up how bad it is. The Chiefs had 3 20-yard carries during the entire regular season. Yo, what? What? That's fucking nuts. That is nuts, yo. So they finally learned their lesson that you can't just take anybody off the street. So they didn't just go and get anybody. They went and got like a legit freaking baller. I mean, I don't know how, aside from injury, I don't want to put that into the universe, how this doesn't work. Ken Walker, a G, bona fide, certified G, bona fide stud, can't teach that. He can handle volume, and he went over 1,000 rush yards on just 220 carries. Like, he's the man. I mean, you get everything. They stack the box against him, and he still gets explosive rushes. And again, he can handle some pass work. This, the exaggerations are just out of control. He caught 31 of 36 balls. He had over 9 yards per reception, 1.5 yards per round. These are good running back numbers. So he went over 1,300 scrimmage yards, and that was with, having to split carries half the year once K-Dub had the backfield to himself. He went freaking nuts. I want to get somebody the weekly finishes. Yes, 7 week 16, running back 10 week 18. I actually thought it was a little bit stronger. So I got to take a soft L on this one. Let me just get into what the frick happened. Oh, that's when the Sharps went down. I didn't realize how late in the season Sharp went down. Which again, I mentioned Jadarian Price every episode, and just mentioning Sharps makes me think of that. Did he tear his knee? Didn't he fucking tear his knee? I thought that's what happened. He tore the ACL in his left knee. And hold on, this can't be right. It was really late, right? In the playoffs. What are we expecting from this guy? I get that. That to me might be the craziest prize. I have not been able to turn down Jadarian Price. Right now, Zach Charbonnet listed as the RB1 in fucking Seattle. When? What week? Week 10? Get the fuck out of here, yo. That's crazy. That's crazy. We know, I mean, Seattle's a good team, and they're looking to be into a run offense. I love that. Whatever. I don't want to get into that now. But that is part of it, right? So at first, if I could bring this back to earth, was I was because of the meta I mentioned before, I was going RB. But because I like Price so much, 3 RBs that early, I found that hampered me a little bit. I always found myself wishing I had a earlier wideout. So, this is why we do this work. You have to shape the stuff. So I'm fine going, where is this? I'm more familiar with best ball on underdog right now. I'm struggling to find my guy. Wow. Darian Price is going at pick 90 on NFC. Holy crap. I haven't started playing there, although I guess these might be best ball drafts. I usually think of NFC as redraft. My gosh, you sign me up for Price at pick 90 at 100%. So back to the board, even if we don't make it all the way through, I want to get out of here in a minute. This is going in too long. I guess we're almost there. I did mention Derrick Henry and I'm out. Let me try and talk myself back into fucking Henry. I mean, we know he's awesome, but you're gonna miss me with the game script stuff. Henry was awesome, over half a fantasy point per snap for a full-time player, except right, only 55% of the snaps. That's really low, and I guess Cook is right there at 57, but God, they just fed him. The thing is, Cook gets the targets also. Cook had double the targets that Henry had. So if you're like, oh, he's not playing as much as I'd like, when Cook is playing, he's involved every phase of the game. Anyway, back to Henry, over 5 yards per attempt, 3.6 yards after contact. Awesome. Double-digit explosive rush rate with an elevated 8-man box. Henry is still a legit elite runner. No question. No question. They get away from him in the pass game, and to me, that's always, the big hang-up, like I was mentioning. Let me see if I could quantify this a little bit better on the game log, where, he's just going to come off the field and not come back, it feels like. I mean, we really didn't have that much last year. I'm kind of talking shit. That game versus Cincinnati, but it was all a game script thing. The Ravens were so good. But in that game versus Cincinnati week 13, I think he scored early and that was it. He ended up having the one catch that went long and he was lucky. He kind of saved his day. Also versus Houston, right? They got rocked. The Texans kicked the shit out of them. And, he scored. He got lucky to get into the end zone, or I guess he scores every game. But, that was 15 touches, but it was 15 empty touches, 33 total yards. The week before that, he only had 10 touches for, 58 total yards and no scores. Week before that, this is early in the year, 13 touches. Week 2, he had 11 touches. Like, there is certainly a world where there's a very cap ceiling on a weekly basis. Overall, with the meta for the Ravens and how good they are, and he's always a focal point. Plus, he's the end zone guy, the red zone guy, the green zone guy. Because as much as Lamar runs, Lamar has to score his running touchdowns from far out, and he's probably going to give you 3 or 4 of those. But that could be the running back. So, like, whatever. That's no different than any long touchdown, which are all kind of highly variant. I don't like being scripted out, even though everything is stronger than I want to admit. And I think that's a case for everybody that doesn't draft Derrick Henry. We don't want to admit how at his age he's still doing these things, but he is. That doesn't mean it's going to last. I do tend to think healthy, he's out there and doing the same shit. No joke. But that doesn't mean I want to take him over guys that I think are more firmly ingrained in plans. Henry's weekly stuff is probably awesome also. He was the number 1 overall back twice, a top 10 back another 4 times. I mean, so you get it from him. But there are massive floor games, right? And when you see that perspective, he went a month without being an RB2. That's pretty rough from your second round pick. And then there were another 3 weeks where he was an RB3 or worse. So that, that's the downside, right? Is the potential for floor that has nothing to do with his talent. All right, we're almost there. It's Brock Bowers. Again, this fits with the McBride pick. I could move them up together. I could move them back together. I'm not at the point where there's the elite talent. I'm not out yet. I still want some of the talent on the board before I'm taking a tight end this year. I think McBride and Bowers are the shit. I'd rather have Loveland 2 rounds later. I'd rather have Fannin 3 rounds after him. I'd rather have Warren or Kraft a round and 2 rounds after that. So I think there's a lot of love in the top 6. And then if you really wait, I think you could plug it in. Baltimore moved away from Likely. You could get the dose of Andrews you're hoping for the whole time. Brenton Strange in Jacksonville. A lot of mouths to feed, but still. Goddard is an end zone god. Sadiq for the Jets, now that we've seen first round tight ends produce. I'm kind of off Gadsden with the signing of Njoku. But even like a healthy Hawkinson or A.J. Barner, I like Gunnar Helm as a deep cut. But these are all the 1v1s are crazy because you're going to the end of the board where the trade-off to the other side, the skill position players, is damn zero at that point. Listen, Bowers is the shit, and now it looks like they're going to have competent quarterback play. So I totally understand it. And I've already drafted him several times because of where he is. You know, when you look at the player that could be the number 1 overall scoring player, volume freaking GOAT. And what did they even do in the pass catching room? I'm not even sure. Hold on. I want to see this for myself. It's like horrendous, right? There's nothing there. Trey Tucker, Jalen Naylor, Jack Best, Dante Thornton, Malik Benson, plus Bowers and Meyer. I think Bowers and Meyer might be the 2 best pass catchers. Bowers going to play all he can handle. Plus, he's a GOAT, and he was hurt last year. So, like, I get it. This is one of those guys, as I try and counter my I don't want Bowers argument, I end up drafting fucking Brock Bowers. He's awesome. You know what I mean? Like, he's freaking awesome. And I don't want him before Pickens, and I don't want him before Jameson Williams or ETN. I know now it's Achane, but I don't want to confuse him with the formerly known as Achane. If I go ETN, people know what I'm talking about. He could, I'll write him an apology letter. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to abuse you, bro. I just got a job to do. I'd rather have Bowers over Ted McMillan and be in Carolina, though. That's for sure. A.J. Brown, I think, might be underpriced. I don't know. I don't think he's going to sit. I think he's playing. Breece Hall also. But look at me. I forgot that it's a 3rd-round reversal. Nico Collins. I think I'd rather have Nico than Brock. I'd rather have Brock than Josh Allen. I think the consolidation at quarterback is easier to fill that in, let's say. I'd probably rather have Rashee Rice, as much as I don't like his game or the man himself, the shit he's up to, but he's a GOAT. Then like Nico and Olave, I think you take over Bowers because of the depth at wide receiver's not there. Then I'm going to Bowers, let's say before Brown and McMillan. I like Shuck, so I'm on Olave. But I'm definitely taking Bowers before Kyren Williams. I don't want Kyren Williams at all. Josh Jacobs, I don't think I want Josh Jacobs at all. Old plus splitting, slow offense. Kyren, good offense, but a lot of splitting, and I think he's losing efficiency. I think he could get outplayed. I feel like Corum was outplaying him down the stretch. I got to take a closer look at that. So Bowers is a tough one because it's elite player, elite production. But it really chokes you. Remember, not only does your tight end need to be good, he has to separate from the field to make it worth it. And then George Pickens, to me, this is the T. Higgins argument from years past. A 2 that's so strong, he's a 1. And if the 1 ever goes down, he's like a 1A on a great offense. I think, Javonte is what it is. I think he's too expensive this year. But what he's not is like super explosive, crazy pass catching back that's going to break the slate. Not him. So it's perfect. We want a back good enough to get the first down, but not good enough to steal touches, and I think that's what you get in Dallas. So I'm all about Pickens. He's awesome. Love Dak Prescott also. So that'll do it. Let's get the hell out of here. Appreciate everybody for hopping on. Remember, this is football's version of 300. Give the book nothing. Take from that bitch everything. This ain't madness, baby.
This is Sparta!
You damn right it is. So thanks for hooking up with us. Check out the data, check out the Substack and the Twitter handle. There's like free looks at all the stuff if you like. Again, it's every damn thing, preseason, fantasy stuff, updating more or less daily at this point. I'm going to keep a riser and follow list. We'll probably get some articles and some exclusive audio stuff. And then once we're in season, weekly projections for every slate, optimal 150s for every slate, plus all the stats that we get, but updating in real time, which, again, to get your hands on like man and zone and EPA for this cheap is really difficult. And especially if you're into baseball at that shit, I'm really trying to underpromise and over-deliver. I know it's hard to ask for money in this environment, but the one thing that's worth paying for is your fucking time. And trust me, yo, I'm a cheap bitch, man. I'm a cheap bitch. You should be a cheap bitch. You work hard for your money. You work hard for the money. You want and you want to make sure that you're getting the most out of it, right? Life's about value, but also you can be too cheap, right? I always thought I was going to love the extreme cheapskate episodes on TV. That's too far. You're hurting yourself. You're actually so cheap that you're costing yourself money, which isn't cheap at all. So let me show you what it means to save some time and check out the boards and all the stats and the differentials, plus the ranks and the data. And then, you're going to get me, plus keeper questions, of course, and all that stuff. So thanks for picking up what we're putting down here at Corked Stats. Remember, enjoy the games, enjoy the day. When we're done with the book, enjoy the pay. And remember, when you work this freaking hard, man, the winning feels a lot less like luck, yo.